Hello and welcome to the International Pentagon Challenge. My name is Kyanite and together we'll be embarking on a very special Football Manager journey where we'll aim to try and win every major international competition in all 5 continents, forcing our hand to play with hundreds of different types of players and most importantly hopefully create loads of awesome different types of tactics along the way. Once that's complete, only then are we allowed to set our sights on the biggest of all goals, the FIFA World Cup. How many nations will we have to manage until we work our way to the top? How many dodgy names will we have to pronounce along the way? So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hopefully we're going to have a lot of fun along the way. Alright, hello everyone and welcome to episode 8 of the International Pentagon Challenge. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I know it's early on in the video, but come on, do us a favour. Christmas spirit and all that. But if you watched the last episode, you'll be aware that we finally have our first international job. That's right, we are going to be managing the almighty Angola. And I was actually quite surprised to find out that Angola were in the 2006 World Cup. Like, I obviously watched the 2006 World Cup at the time, but I seriously couldn't even remember that Angola were in the World Cup. So, it just goes to show that, you know, on paper, Angola, they are maybe capable of something special if, you know, they've got a decent manager in charge. That decent manager may not necessarily be me, but hey, we can try. So, yeah, obviously, we only really play competitive games on camera, and as we can see, the last time we met was after the 4-0 loss against Morocco, where I obviously wasn't the manager, because whoever the last manager was, he got the sack after a poor showing in the African Cup of Nations. So we've had 3 friendlies, a 1-0 win against Burundi, a 5-0 win against Sudan, with the funniest penalty you'll probably ever see. We'll take a look at all them 5 goals in a sec. And yeah, 0-0 draw against Guinea. So, without further ado, let's take a quick look at the 5 goals we scored against Sudan. So, you know, whilst these goals are a thing, I just want to really thank everyone who's been commenting so far on the videos to do with this series. The support has seriously been unreal, and some of the comments have definitely put a massive smile on my face. And I'm really glad that a lot of people are enjoying it and getting involved as well. Let me know about their journeyman saves and whatnot, and what's going on, yeah, in their beautiful world of FM. But there we go. Angola with, I think that's goal number 3. Obviously Sudan, not really an amazing side, but we had 2 friendlies away from home, one which we won 1-0 and one where we drew 0-0 against Guinea. And this is a really weird penalty, so it bounces back off the post. The defender tries to actually clear the ball, but he clears the ball against my striker and it bounces in. Like, I'm not even quite sure how that was even a thing, but apparently that's how you clear a missed penalty. But what matters is we won 5-0 on home soil, and it just goes to show that we do have a fair amount of talent in this squad. Positively, we've not conceded a goal yet, you know, managing Angola, which is good. Another positive as well is that Mauritius actually beat Niger in the previous qualifying round. Now, obviously, Niger are a better side on paper in comparison to Angola, but it was actually a 41st minute penalty that got Mauritius an away goal. And it means that Niger obviously are knocked out the African World Cup qualifiers, and on paper we should now have relatively easy opposition going into the next round, which is amazing for us really, because the World Cup qualifiers, like I said, Angola are a nation who've qualified for the World Cup before. When we first took over, we were about 60th, I believe, 66th. We've now dropped down to 79th, but I don't really pay much attention to the world rankings, simply because they don't really mean much. And obviously, looking at our schedule, we've not really done poorly, have we? I was very disappointed not to grab a goal against Guinea, especially considering we are a better team. But I did kind of try to start off with a 4-5-1, see whether or not, you know, we could maybe away from home play with an extra person in midfield and control the game a little bit better. But to be fully honest, I've really not found a 5 in midfield system that really seems to suit the best Angolan players I have. So, just to clarify one thing, I don't want to make this episode too long, and I know the DR Congo episode was quite long, where we took a look at all of our main players individually, so instead, I'm going to do this. All I'm really going to be doing right now is kind of hovering over the attributes of all of our players. This is really just a new way of doing things, because I feel like in this journeyman save, if we're going to stop at every single country we end up managing and end up analysing each and every single individual player's stats, episodes will be far too big. So if you want to look at player stats in more details, you can always feel free to pause the video, obviously, as I do this. But generally speaking, it's safe to say that the quality of players we have are quite different, and obviously slightly better to the Congo under-23s. I feel like my main issue right now with this Angolian side is I feel like it has some decent players, but none of them really come across as really World Cup quality, if that makes sense. Physically as well, we have some relatively fast players, but over 14 acceleration / pace, we don't really have anything along them lines. So generally speaking, our players seem okay, but it kind of seems like we don't really have any world beaters. Yeah, we don't really have any standout player. I think our best player really on paper is Gelson Dalla, who plays for Sporting Lisbon. And yeah, as we can see, he only really plays for their B team, so that's a bit disappointing. On paper, we don't really have any players who are probably capable of competing at a World Cup. Bastos probably would be, but we've just got to try and get the best out of what we've got and try and play to the team's strengths. So for that reason, obviously, a lot of our games, I'd like to think that we are one of the stronger sides in Africa. So for that reason, against the stronger sides, I want to play more of a counter-attacking approach with the same 4-4-2 shape. However, I've not really developed that tactic yet. But in terms of playing against much weaker opposition, I just want to go all-out attack. Now, it's not really my usual style, but I feel like in terms of defensive ability, in terms of ability in the middle of the park, let's be honest, our midfielders here in Angola aren't really great. Most of our strength really comes in terms of having a bit of pace to get forward, in terms of your fullbacks, and having a bit of pace in the wide areas and relatively decent strikers. So really the plan is to be quite direct, quite attacking, try and basically force as many attacks as we can up against weaker opposition. We'll get caught on the counter-attack, we know that, but if we can outscore the opposition and play to our strengths, particularly against a lot of the weaker African sides like Mauritius in this World Cup qualifier, that's really the plan for us. Very, very attacking approach, not usually my style, but we've got to play to our strengths, quite simply. So one thing we will actually still pay a bit more attention to is what's going on tactically, and I think we're going to be at Angola for quite a while as opposed to the Congo under-23s, so you'll get to know the players as you watch more episodes. So in terms of goalkeeper, nothing too special on the goalkeeper in Cadu. Da Costa and Paizo both as regular fullbacks. Now, them being on automatic means they'll adjust based on mentality. So if we go into a game with an attacking mentality, which we will do against weaker sides, they'll look to get forward a little bit more. Now, Cadu has been told to specifically roll it out to Bastos. This is because Bastos on paper is really a ball-playing defender, and I feel like we can utilise him in doing that. He's got 12 passing, 12 vision, which really ain't too bad in terms of him trying to get the ball out the back, and it just helps us try and retain that extra bit of possession rather than have Cadu kick it long, and 12 kicking ain't really great. And even though Nzola is kind of the type of player I view as a target man, Africans tend to be pretty big at the back, so it's not really something I'm looking to do right now. We're not the biggest of teams, and we'll see that when we look at set pieces as well. So Da Costa is tackle harder, mark tighter, sit narrower, cut inside of the ball. The main reason why I've told him to sit narrower is just to try and remain a little bit more defensively stable in this very offensive tactic. And generally speaking, if you want to try and get more shots off on goal, it is better to sit a little bit narrower rather than have him floating around in the wide areas and make us a little bit more susceptible to the counter-attack, because then the space between the centre-back and the full-back is a little bit greater. And the reason why I've told him to cut inside with the ball is because Paizo on the other side has been told to run wide with the ball. We play with an inside forward on the left because I feel like we have some players we can utilise in that kind of role. Obviously, we can always switch him around a little bit. It is interchangeable. So it does make sense to have Paizo really look to be a little bit more wide, whilst because we have out-and-out winger on the right-hand side. Again, you might see Da Costa play on the right-hand side, to be fair. But again, we have a lot of right-footed players, and you'll see that once again reflect in the set pieces. So for that reason, Clinton Mata is going to be more of a winger, so he is going to look to be a little bit more wider. So Da Costa will really, by cutting inside, just look to fill that gap, which is really the space the inside forward would go into on the other opposite side, which is why the fullback goes on the outside and Da Costa looks to stay a little bit more narrow. And it kind of adds a third midfielder, brings him a little bit closer to our two midfielders, who, like I said before, technically aren't very good. That's why we're playing quite direct and looking to really bypass the midfield. If we can get the ball into the final third, I feel like we've got enough kind of attacking threat to force goals, especially against poorer African sides, and I think we saw that at home against Sudan. In terms of our two centre-backs, both have been told to close down a little bit less than usual. That's mainly because in terms of our team instructions, we're closing down much more because it suits well the attacking mentality. We don't really want to give these weak sides much time to breathe. Makes you a little bit more susceptible defensively, as we see with like a very high pressing approach that you might get with like Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool and whatnot. But when you can get that ball to the final third, it doesn't matter if you concede 1 or 2 if you've scored about 5 on the other end. So that's really the mentality we're taking in towards the weaker African sides. Panya is going to be a deep line playmaker on support, marking tighter, try and keep us a little bit more tighter defensively in the midfield. We're playing with a ball-winning midfielder as well. That role might change depending on the scoreline and depending on the players we bring in. We have quite a few defensive midfielders as well, so maybe the kind of counter-attacking approach we end up taking against stronger sides, once we have to face stronger sides, could end up being dropping him to a more of a defensive midfielder to shore up the defence. But like I said, generally speaking, we're looking to really bypass these two because we don't have great central midfielders. We've got Bella on the left-hand side, Jeremy Bella. Now, I'll admit I've not actually played Bella, even though I've had 3 friendlies, but I'm willing to give him a go. Looks like a relatively tidy player. He's kind of like good in several areas, but he's only good. You know, he's not amazing. I was trying to play Vetokele as that inside forward, and on paper looks quite good. Plays for Charlton, who I believe are in League One at the moment, but his performances have been a little bit poor, so Bella's going to really come in and try and change things around for this game. He looks to close down more, tackle harder, mark tighter, sit narrower to give this guy a bit more room to overlap and as well almost become like a third striker at times. By marking specific player, our wide men are going to be man-marking the opposition wide men just to ensure our fullbacks have a little bit more support. Because in this kind of like 4-2-2-2 approach, these guys can often neglect their defensive duties. So by telling to man-mark, they neglect them a little bit less. Next up we have Angola, who I really see is kind of a target man style of player, 187 centimeters, 13 jumping reach, and that's really what I mean. He's big, he's strong, but he's still not an ideal target man. He's physical, technically he's okay, mentally he's okay. We have okay players, but none of them are just great, you know what I mean? So it's important that we play well as a team. But yeah, it feels like it could be useful up against big African centre-backs to have a big guy up front and to be a bit more of a threat going forwards. And then, you know, the pacey guy up front. We have quite a few pacey strikers. Daya, Yano and Cristovao. So I needed some kind of role to utilise kind of a pacey striker because we have a lot of them. So there's the advanced forward. So hopefully Nzola will come a little bit deeper, sometimes look a bit like a 4-2-3-1. Might end up being that away from home. I'm not entirely sure yet against the stronger sides. Target man, advanced forward, winger, inside forward. Yeah, just get that ball forward really. Structured team shape, don't want players to overcomplicate things. Attacking mentality, slightly deeper defensive line, just again to make up for the fact that we are so offensive. A normal tempo, that way the players will really up it and lower it as they see fit. A narrow width, which isn't really too narrow when you're playing on attacking, but it's important that the players obviously remain relatively narrow to keep us defensively sound. And also, if we can reduce the gaps between players, passing-wise, we don't have the best team in terms of technical ability in passing, so if we can reduce the gap between certain players. Obviously, we're playing more direct, so you might think, why are you playing more narrow and more direct? But it just means the passes are a little bit more direct. We're not going route one, right, and playing narrow. It just means that, for example, if Pana had the option to thread the ball through to Dyer or Mata or give it sideways to Joachim Adao, he'd probably try and play it to the front too. It just means that the size of the pass, they always try the slightly more direct option regardless of our width. Closing down much more again, risky play, but it's what we are going into this to try and do. We've got quite fit players who are okay from a physical standpoint, especially against these weaker African sides. So we want to take advantage of that. Getting stuck in tackling wise, looking to pass into space. Again, we've got relatively pacey players, but that is pretty much it. I'm not telling him specifically what I want him to do in the final third. We'll kind of modify that based on how it looks like the performance is going. If we feel like we're shooting too much from outside the box and we need to be a little bit more patient, we'll tell him to work the ball into the box. In terms of anything else, I've really not told him anything. And these are kind of things, again, that will change based on how it kind of seems like the opposition are playing and what I feel could help us unlock the opposition defence. So on that note, that is it for Angola for now. We have our first World Cup Qualifier game against Mauritius. We obviously don't know too much about them. I mean, I know I kind of said, oh, I'm looking forward to being able to scout players, but it's nice to see that my scouts aren't really doing their job, to be honest. We do have scouts, they're not really doing their job. We do get a bit of a report on them, so overview. And we see that 4-4-2 has been a source of problems. They've been quite vulnerable playing against a 4-4-2. But to be fully honest with you, I mean, it's nice that we get this. We didn't have this in the under-23s, but it's Mauritius, for God's sake. And no disrespect to Mauritius, we should be beating them by a good 2-3 goals away from home. So we're going to be attacking. We're going to take the game to them. And yeah, I've got faith that we should be able to see it through without necessarily overcomplicating things. Now, in terms of set pieces, one thing I noticed was that we don't have many left-footed players. So for that reason, for the left corners, we're going to go with the same in-swinging approach that we did with Congo. I felt like it worked well. Helped us focus on getting like the bigger players towards the far post. There we have like our centre-back and, you know, our target man. And keeping quite a few players on the edge of the box to kind of recycle possession. But then on the right hand side, because we didn't really have any good left footed takers, I've actually gone for more of a near post approach. Now I found that in the friendlies, near post would always result in the opposition headering it away, so I've changed it to 6-yard box. The idea really is just to have our biggest centre back challenging the keeper, have our big target man who should be relatively decent in the air at the near post, ready to head it in. Really, that's it. And we got a guy in the form of our right back offering a short option just to maybe try and drag an extra player out of the box. But that's it really. We're not looking to reinvent the wheel. We're looking to try and keep things relatively simple. And like I said, if you feel like, you know, I've not gone into enough depth and whatnot, you'll learn a little bit about the players as we kind of progress as the Angola manager. So without further ado, let's beat Mauritius. So, preview-wise, our recent form is apparently inconsistent, which is, I mean, fair enough. But to be fair, like, that win and loss weren't even me. Obviously, as we can see, we are the favourites to win. It looks like they're playing with a 4-3-3 narrow. We didn't actually take a look at their manager. Now, previously, they've kind of played with a 4-5-1 and whatnot, but I'm not sure if that was under a different manager. This guy likes to play with a slightly overpowered 4-3-3 narrow, which is kind of annoying. But, yeah, his only second preferred defensive formation is a 4-4-1-1. So if he does end up coming out with a 4-3-3 narrow, we'll just look to play a little bit more wider. And I think it will suit us playing with an attacking mentality because we have them, you know, offensive winger and the offensive inside forward out in the wide areas. And we have fullbacks bombing forward as well. So I'm really not too worried about it. And I just don't feel like Mauritius's quality up front is really enough to cause us problems defensively, even though there'll be 3 of them and they'll be looking to play on the counter-attack. Worst case scenario, they grab a goal and we just score more than them. I'm feeling pretty confident, to be honest. Cado in goal, Da Costa, Quagica, Bastos, Paizo. Panya is our playmaker in midfield with Joachim Adao the ball winner. Bella on the left, Mata on the right, Gelson Dyer up front, who obviously scored a hat-trick, or maybe 4 goals, against Sudan, and Angola alongside him. As for Mauritius, they have actually gone with the 4-4-1-1. Again, you know, I don't want to try and counteract anything too much. I just want to make sure our wide men are man-marking the right people. Right, okay, yeah, we are on comprehensive, which is good. I was kind of worried that maybe in my friendlies I put it on key highlights, but obviously I didn't, so it goes to show I was taking them pretty keen. But here we go. So, 4-4-1-1. That's not a great pass, that, is it? Let's kick things off by encouraging the lads. And look, to be honest, if we end up going 1 or 2 goals up relatively fast, I can quite easily bring down the level of highlights. And, well, there we go. That's not a bad start, is it? Angola with a free kick to put us 1-0 up against Mauritius. You can see I'm enjoying that one on the bench, aren't I? I had a mini heart attack then when I saw the highlight straight after the kickoff, but then I kind of remembered that we're kind of on comprehensive highlights. So, yeah, like I said, if we end up going 2-0, then I can always bring the highlights down to, like, key or extended because, yeah, it'll kind of be game over at that point. I'm kind of surprised that they've opted to go with one up front, given that they're going to be looking to really play on the counter-attack. And really, they should be looking to try and at least get a draw. So now that we've kind of gone 1-0 up, they kind of need a goal from somewhere. But that's nice play. Direct ball forward. Our player kind of just dived there. You can see it's just that lone long ball up towards a kind of single player. And I think they would have been better off even playing as a 4-3-3 here. And Zola hits the post. Should have done a little bit better with that chance there. But so far, so good. We've come into this wanting to play direct, wanting to play to the strengths of our players. And you could see there that inside forward. Told him to sit narrow, and with him being an inside forward, he almost kind of becomes a third striker once our winger gets balls into the box, which is quite nice. A lot of our offensive strength going forward is actually through Da Costa and our right winger. So far, most of our attacks really down the wide areas. Nice idea getting the ball forward towards Gelson. They're really looking to pass it out the back here. They're not holding back, are they? Mauritius. Fair play to him. They're looking to play football, but Piana wins the ball back. And straight away, there's our front four, quite narrow. We get the ball into the box. Bella's going to shoot, and it's yet another corner. So I think tactically, I know most of my viewers are quite tactically minded as well. And ironically, tactically, we've been quite simple today. But I think it's quite easy to see what the approach really is. This is why I'm really surprised that Mauritius haven't actually switched to two up front. I mean, all you need to do is switch that attacking midfielder to kind of like a shadow striker at least. Just to give a second runner, because a lot of the time, it just ends up being two strikers up against our two centre-backs because of how adventurous going forward our full-backs really are. So Panya will find Nzola. Mata will shoot, and Mata will make it 2-0. It's not Juan Mata, it's Clinton Mata. He's obviously decided that he'd rather play football than sell cards, which is fine by me. Pretty damn simple so far. So for that reason, yeah, we're going to increase to key highlights. So Joachim Adao, ball-winning midfielder, just looks to give us a little bit of stability in the middle of the park. I felt like it was a good idea to go with a deep-line playmaker because even though technically our central players aren't that good, most of our limited kind of ability in the middle of the park is kind of, they like to play as playmakers. So it just made sense to have a guy not really looking to really advance too much in the middle of the park, but just kind of sit in the hole and play direct passes forwards towards the wide areas, towards the two up front, and help us get the ball forward. But ever since we switched to key highlights, it doesn't really seem like we've created much. And to be honest, I can't really see Mauritius creating much either. Let's see if we can win that ball back in midfield. It's our centre-backs that win it. I do feel like actually playing a bit more of a higher defensive line could help us here as well. And Zola's one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and well, I was very, very close to taking Pana off, but he stayed in that hole as a deep line playmaker, made the run, or made the pass, sorry, for the run of the striker going forwards, and the big man up front in Nzola finds it back of the net. So it's probably time we make a sub. Pana is looking pretty tired actually, so in terms of bringing another playmaker on in his place, and this is kind of like where you guys will start to get a little bit more familiar with players. Obviously in terms of a playmaker, I look mainly at passing and vision. In this case, you don't want to look at too many more attributes because, let's be honest, the players just really aren't that capable. And in terms of that position, we got quite a few good players. Manuel has 14 passing and 14 vision. 194 centimeters is his height. So for that reason, I could potentially go with him, but instead I'm going to go with Pirolito. I feel like he's a player I want to see more of, and to be honest, he's kind of more match fit than the other guys. So, yeah. That's another issue, really, when you play kind of international games, especially with weird countries like this. A lot of the time, some of your better players aren't actually match fit, which is kind of disappointing. And it's kind of up to you to figure. So, like, Nurio is a much better left-back than the left-back we currently have on the pitch in Paizo, even though he's got an 8.0, so fair play to him. But the guy's just not match fit. So that's why Paizo came in. It's his first game where I actually play him. And to be fair, he's done a good job. I've put out a few gambles here, I'll be honest. I've not seen Bella play before. And I've not seen Paizo play before, and I've not really seen Kadu and Kwagika play much before. Kind of put them on in a friendly off the bench, but that wasn't really enough game time to see much out of them. But so far, they've not really done too badly. So one change I'm going to make is I'm going to give Vetokele a chance, the Charlton lad, to come on the left-hand side. I feel like our fullbacks, especially Da Costa down the right-hand side, could do with a little bit of help. So Bruno Gaspar, not really match fit, but on paper, very, very good player. 14 crossing is what I like on him. So I do think he could potentially be an asset going into the second leg. So whenever I feel like, there we go, there's a man market coming into play. So whenever I feel like a player could be an asset in, good save, could be an asset in the second leg, I might sub him on to try and gain match fitness. But it is annoying that obviously they don't really have any means to gain match fitness because they don't have clubs or they're not playing for their clubs. It's just something we kind of have to deal with. So, Daya is looking for the cross. Joachim Adao will recycle possession. Mata cuts inside, finds our ball-winning midfielder yet again. Nice through ball towards Paizo, who drills the ball into the middle of the box. And I think that could very well be his second assist as well. The Sporting Lisbon man, in the form of Gelson Daya, makes it 4-0. And are we going to make it 5 again? Oh, Jesus Christ, comes back off the bar. I'd love it if we make it 5. 5-0 win against Sudan and a 5-0 win against Mauritius. I have found that FM18 in general seems to kind of... Oh, God, that's a great ball, actually. Come on, keeper. Good save. I have found that FM18 in general seems to respond a lot better towards more attacking styles of play. I guess that kind of makes sense given the fact that we were playing on overload, trying to recreate Pulis's approach in our Brighton save. If you've not seen that, if you want to see it, the playlist is on my channel. But there we go, a nice comfortable 4-0 win against Mauritius in this first leg World Cup qualifier. Tactically, absolutely no reason to change anything around going into the second leg. They're going to need a heck of a load of goals to turn this around. If anything, I might give some fringe players a shot and see how they perform. So, most importantly, all the players look happy after that. We've got 3 days rest before going into the next game. And on that note, that is really going to be it. One thing we are going to do just before we kind of bring this video to an end is take a look at how the under-23s are doing for DR Congo. So, unfortunately, we can't actually look at what starting lineups they've been playing. It's locked us out of it. Elia got a goal, though. Makengo, I think I remember that name, and then they lost 2-0 against Tunisia. But as we can see, they did obviously, in the end, qualify for the Under-23 African Cup of Nations. But, blimey, they've got a tough group. So, they've got Cameroon and Senegal in their group. And it looks like it's only made out of 2 groups, which is kind of interesting. But it's no surprising considering how many teams went out in the qualifiers. There's so many good countries here that are missing, honestly. Like, no Egypt, no Morocco and whatnot. And Morocco are a good side considering they won the African Cup of Nations in this save early on in the year. But yeah, that's going to be it. I'm going to wrap it up for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought in the comments in terms of kind of the approach I took with kind of... Are these guys happy or sad? Yeah. Let me know how you found the approach where we were kind of looking at players' stats, where I kind of give you guys the option to pause the video so we don't end up with like half an hour long videos. If you like that, let me know. If you didn't like that and you actually do prefer me going through every player one by one, I don't mind doing it, right? Despite the fact that I just rolled my eyes. But okay, so that's going to be it. So far, we're yet to concede a goal as manager of Angola. And we're one step closer to the World Cup. If you like the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Once again, thank you very much for all the support on this series. I don't think there's anything else out there like this. I mean, obviously there's a lot of journeymen, but it's kind of like a Pentagon and international weird save in one. One thing that's been mentioned is the problems that my inability to really do coaching badges could cause. And yeah, it could cause problems. But I'll worry about it when it really does become a problem. Because I kind of feel like, even if I don't have coaching badges, if I win trophies or silverware, my reputation has to increase, right? And hopefully we can use that to get a good job. But on that note, I've been Kyanite. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps people find the videos. It's so helpful. If you enjoyed the video, share it with friends and whatnot. You know what you got to do. See you next time.